Okay, so assigning receivables or selling receivables, what's the big deal here? FASB has a lot of rules on this. Basically, to call it a sale, the transfer or the company has to give up all the control over the assets that are transferred. So that's really clear when the receivables are sold without recourse. There's no really continuing, substantial involvement of the company that sold them with those receivables. But a lot of times the distinction isn't that clear just because of the way the agreements are structured. You can have agreements that are structured to meet the qualifications for the sale, just barely, but the transferor, the company, still has enough involvement to say they still have control of the receivables. And so why would companies want to, account for it one way rather than the other? Well, if you look at the sale of receivables, the company gets cash, they have the due from factor, here's the loss on the sale, and the receivables come off the books. There's no increased liability here, okay? You'll be reporting some loss on your income statement, but you have your receivables come off, but you still get the assets, cash and due from factor that, the only real thing that shows up is that loss. With your secured borrowing, you've got significantly more debt on your balance sheet. You've got, you have the cash, but you have more debt. And so when you sell the receivables, they prefer the sales approach because, your company looks more liquid. It looks like you have less debt, you're less leveraged. And so FASB has the rules so that companies don't account for everything as a sale. And so these are the basic rules. It would be good to be aware of what these are. So FASB guidelines for accounting for the sale of receivables. And you can read through those. I don't have to read them to you. Okay, so if all three of those have met, you can call it a sale. Otherwise, it's going to be accounted for as a secured borrowing. Okay, so let's just go over here a little bit and just to compare. You have the accounts receivable off the books. I'm just trying to show you why companies have the incentive to do it one way or rather than another. With the sales approach, you're going to end up with lower total assets and a higher return on assets because the receivables come off the books. Secured borrowing, the receivables stay on the books. What does it do to your liabilities? Well, with the sales approach, you've got less liabilities, and so you've got a better debt-to-equity ratio and various other ratios that involve the debt. With the secured borrowing, you're going to have more debt on your books. Cash shown on the cash flow statement. Usually with a sale, it's going to show up in the operating section, sometimes financing, but mostly operating. With secured borrowing, that's always going to be in your financing section. So on a cash flow statement, if you remember that from long ago and far away in AC 102, you know that you really want to have a good cash flow from operating rather than from financing and investing, because that shows that your company's actually doing what it's supposed to do. Okay, and then recognizing a gain or a loss. You're more likely to recognize a loss on the transfer when you're selling it, but you've got your finance fees on the secured borrowing. Okay, so that's just a little bit on that. You just do need to be aware of those FASB requirements to call it a sale. Okay.